Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new malicious compliance stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first one is titled, Towing Trailers. I work for a landscaping company that is pretty cheap. Like, we clean out abandoned buildings, and if we find tools, that's our shop tools. I don't think they've bought anything new. Nice new trucks, but never inspected or services, being the oil changes we do personally. Since I started there, I've had the same Chevy 2500 diesel. I've put some mods in because I have to tow a 13,000 pounds machine on a 3,100 pounds trailer. The truck can, but it doesn't overheat anymore. I've been pestering since day one that the truck doesn't have commercial registration and that it's only registered to tow 5,125 pounds. So, I'm a little overweight, all the time. For about a year now I haven't had adequate tie-downs either. And complained almost daily about that. Even to the point of signing an agreement that if I get pulled over they're paying all the tickets. Today, as I'm heading to our not-so-legal dumping ground, I get pulled over by Dot for one of my turn signals on the trailer being burned out. He asks me to step out and do a walk around with him. I helped point out a few things he missed, and thanked him for his service. Worked out to a total of $11,800. Commercial fines are much larger, for what would have cost him maybe $30 a month extra registration and $160 a year for trailer inspection. The next one is titled, My Granddad, Prankster and Military Compliance Expert. Backstory: my grandfather was born 1920 and raised in Germany. As was the custom at the time, he was required to volunteer for the army. The first time he got his draft letter, his boss at the construction company took care of it, as they had government contracts and thus got exempt from military drafts. Unfortunately, that meant he could almost abuse his workers as slaves, as long as it was still a better option than getting sent to invade France. So Grandpa wiggled out of his job with the second letter 6 months later and became part of the second line. Basically, he came in after the fighting and fixed what the other guys shot bombed to hell, mostly comms and logistics stuff. Q1 playful guy who knows his job. The players: GD, Granddad, or Great Dude, a good old-fashioned prankster getting drafted. PB, patrol buddy, his unknowing partner in crime. DC, dickhead captain. About the lowest of officers that actually volunteered. Hates GD for unknown reason. Chief, runs the local division, likes his easy military management desk job. All titles converted to current-ish ranks. During his time in the military, GD's group toured France, the Alps, over Austria back home. At some point, he was stationed as patrol guard in a villa control in southern France post they borrowed from a wealthy local. It was not uncommon for officers to sneak out a small back gate of these villa grounds to go to the local village and have some drinks and/or women. It was officially not allowed and even punishable to leave their post for leisure, but officers weren't prone to complain, and the few regular soldiers that knew didn't want to get a butt-whooping from a vengeful officer. Cue the MC. The story: about an hour before GD is scheduled for guard duty, he sees DC leave for the village, and starts to formulate a plan. After making a few rounds, he convinces PB to hide behind a hedge near the gate and await the return of DC. They wait there for a long time, up to the point where PB starts asking GD to drop it and go back on patrol before they are caught. Luckily GD is his senior in age, not sure if rank, and PB doesn't have the guts to walk away. About 20 minutes before the end of their shift, GD hears the back gate open and goes for it. As the gate swings open and a half-drunk DC walks through, GD jumps out in the open, quickly shouts, "Who goes there? Who goes there?" and fires a round in the air before keeping his weapon aimed at a stunned DC. PB, realizing crap is about to go down, follows protocol and coordinates the other soldiers running to the sound and frisks the DC for his papers and weapons before bringing him to Chief under armed escort, as per regulation. They arrive at the Chief's office and GD and DC are requested in to explain. GD gets to go first and explain to the Chief, "While I was on patrol duty, I heard someone coming on the grounds through a small gate in the back. As per protocol, I made myself visible, shouted twice, 'Who goes there?' and as I had not yet received an answer, fired a warning shot to apprehend the intruder. Chief realizes GD followed protocol to the letter, and punishing would require an official explanation as to what DC was doing at the back gate. He sends GD back on patrol and to take PB and the guard with him from his hallway. The door is barely closed when they hear Chief shouting at DC, "You moron, now they, soldiers, all know about our way to the village. Do you know how much you screwed us, officers, over?" DC has sobered enough to take the earful and not make a fuss, as the alternative was a court-martial for desertion. GD walks away with a smile and a few promised beers from fellow soldiers. DC becomes unwelcome in any card games among officers for the rest of their stay. The next one is titled, "I Can Only Work While It's Cooler." Employee worked at a farming equipment manufacturer. It would reach temperatures sometimes above 100°F in the summer. No one likes to work in that kind of heat, so the special employee thought he would be smart and get out of working during the hottest part of the day, but still earn enough to live on. Employee found a doctor to write a note saying that he couldn't work in temperatures over 90°F. This worked well for him for a few weeks. He would work about 4 hours and say it was too hot and go home. This left manager in a tough spot with one less person for half of the day, but knew that he had to comply with employees' restrictions. Manager installed thermometers around the shop. Manager of course does not want employee to have a health problem, so as soon as one of the thermometers reached 90, employee was sent home. It turned out that it was getting to 90°F about 2 hours into employee's shift, not 4. This put employee in a pinch because now he wasn't earning enough to live on. Now employee had a couple choices. He could find another job that was cooler. Maybe a part-time job in the afternoon that would be done in air conditioning, or he could admit that he just didn't want to work in the heat, but it wasn't really causing any health problems. In the end, employee went back to the doctor and got the note removed from his file. He was now able to work full shifts alongside his co-workers. The next one is titled, "Won't Negotiate with an 18-year-old? Won't Make a Sale." I was 18 years old one nice and brisk Kentucky September, and I was in the market to purchase a used car for college, specifically a Jeep TJSE with the 5-speed, upgraded OEM manifold instead of the problematic tubular one, full doors, and a factory or suitable quality aftermarket hardtop. I had done my research. I knew what I was looking for, what problems the TJs I was looking at had, where to look for issues, and what they were selling for. I knew those Jeeps front, back, and sideways, to include being able to identify them within a 10-year span from the taillights on the highway in the dark. I've been wrenching on cars since I was 14, and I know my way around the undercarriage and engine bay of a vehicle. I was cruising around the town, and I spotted a good-looking Jeep in red, bone stock with the options I wanted. Called my grandfather, who is my go-to, take a look at this in case I missed something, guy for this kind of thing, and picked him up to take a look at it. It had some problems, but nothing too bad, nothing out of the ordinary for a 4-wheel drive vehicle of this Jeep's age. Took a test drive, no problems, let's get to talking. Now, this was a 2001 Jeep with 103k miles, and it was literally the lowest optioned edition. They made no automatic transmission, no engine upgrade, regular axles, and whole 9 was base model. Their asking price was $11,500, hell no. This was a $6,000 car all day, but nobody in their right mind would pay $11,500 for it. So I put on my negotiation pants and started trying to work the salesman down to a price that I was satisfied with. Dude wouldn't even talk to me. He was apparently only satisfied with trying to sell to my grandfather, who, to his credit, just pointed to me and told the guy the first was the one to talk to. After a few back and forths without having my comments heard, I realized that I was getting nowhere, and we bowed out gracefully. I came back alone the next day to negotiate one-on-one. At this point, the Jeep is not on the lot. Apparently it was refusing to turn over due to an electrical gremlin. No big deal, issue I was expecting to deal with, but that's more money and time I would have to sink into the thing, so it was more imperative I negotiate hard and fair. Walked onto the lot, found the same salesman, and I cut right to the chase. Me, I can't do $11,500 for this. What can you do to work with me? Sales, well, I can't give you a huge discount. This Jeep is worth what we're asking. Me, Kelley Blue Book says this Jeep in better condition is worth $6,000. Nobody in this industry uses Kelley Blue Book, we all use NADA, and that's what we base our prices on. Me, okay, Nada says that you shouldn't have paid a dime more than $4,500 for this Jeep and should have it priced at $6,500, $7,000. Check this morning. Well, those are prices for Jeeps in worse condition than this one is. Me, so you're overlooking the cracked hardtop, the non-functioning rear wiper, the major dent in the tub where someone dropped something on it, the rust in the rockers, the 6 months or one good rain from freezing rear gate hinges, the whistling door frame, and the leak on the passenger side cowl, not to mention the fact that it doesn't even start right now? Look, sir, I can give you $6,000 today. That's a fair price for you and for me, if you based your buying on Nada like you said you did. You can either work with me, or I walk and never set foot on your lot again. Guy thought he called my bluff, told me to walk off the lot because he couldn't follow the pricing he said he followed. So I did. I got back in my junky hand-me-down truck that ran like a top because of my own work on it, drove off the lot, and didn't come back. The lot closed for good about a year later. The next one is titled, Don't Want Dogs in Your Yard, Lose Your Parking Spot. Before I start, I want you guys to know that I live in the Philippines and most dogs in my country aren't kept inside the house but inside cages outside of the home because my immediate family doesn't want rowdy dogs inside the house. I got 2 Belgian Malinois puppies from my aunt 2 months ago and I love them dearly. We have a giant cage for them that 2 people can fit in and lie down in, but since their breed is very active we made a playpen for them to run around in while I'm at work so they're not confined to a cage. Their cage and playpen are connected with a small gate to the backyard. I always let them run around the entirety of the backyard whenever I get home and prepare their food. I always thought this was alright because they won't do much damage since it was only a few minutes a day, until I found out my uncle came home. Our lot has 4 houses and the backyard is in between the 4 houses and my dogs just went crazy and ran to him and was being distracted because of the noise of the gate and car. He got mad at my dogs and kicked them to go back in the playpen all the while I was fixing their food and only went to look at them when I heard the dogs crying. He put them back in the playpen saying how much the dogs ruined his plants and ruined their laundry because I left the dogs out of their playpen, which was a lie due to the fact that they can't get out the locked gate unless a human would open it and it was too high to jump. They made a giant fuss and said that my dogs got out of the house and followed a child and that the child's mother was upset and said all of these obvious lies to my aunts and uncles trying to get them to side with my uncle that didn't like my dogs. Here's the thing, the playpen was an old gate that my uncle owned but gave to us to use for the playpen because they didn't have space to park their cars without ruining their gate. Since they were so mad that my dogs were going to his property, it isn't his, the land he built his house in was titled to my mum but he went and built his house there anyway. Me and my dad disassembled the playpen and moved it back and got it welded shut and can't be moved without completely ruining it. Now my uncle and aunt always fight about parking their cars and making it fit their driveway. My dogs now have the whole backyard to run in every day. The next one is titled, Move Your Garbage Bins to the Other Side of the House so my kids can use them. My boyfriend and I are renting a house. We moved there in December and have had nothing but issues with our neighbors ever since. First, our grass was too long. They didn't talk to us about it. Nope. They called our landlord and said our grass was knee-high. It was not. We have a company take care of our yard care because I am allergic to grass and our yard looked nice. But I got a message from our landlord to take care of the yard. Luckily I was home, so I just FaceTimed him right there and then and showed him the yard. Second, our parking. We have back alley parking or street parking in front. My boyfriend parks front of our house and I park around back. Every single time my boyfriend leaves, within 15 minutes the neighbors will have moved their car out of their garage and in front of our house. Which not a huge issue, street parking is public parking, but damn they are being petty about it. And finally, our garbage and malicious compliance. So once again, instead of talking to us about any issues, our neighbors call our landlord. Neighbor wants us to move the garbage to the other side of our house so that when her kids are walking back from the pool and walk through our backyard they can throw their trash out in our bins. Our landlord tells us to do it. I am pretty fed up with bothersome neighbors and crappy landlords now. So we move the bins to the other side of the house. And we put locks on them. No idea what the fallout will be, but I am pretty sure we will be moving once our lease is up anyways. The next one is titled, Contract Steward? Okay. Little rundown, I'm a security contractor for a 3-letter agency and I recently picked up a part-time warehouse job locally since I'm off 4 days a week from my full-time job. I started 2 weeks ago, I love it there, and everyone is awesome, except for maybe 3 to 4 people. Other than those people, it's a great place. However, yesterday was a day that followed into today and MC happened today. There's a guy, we'll call him M, that is apparently a strict-by-the-book, union contract guy. He's a steward for the union in the facility and will let you know about it. Been there for 14 years. Anyways, I had a pallet yesterday, 8 in total. One of the pallets weren't wrapped up as the final pallet was in the back of the trailer. I was waiting to wrap the unwrapped one when I got all 8 together. M happens to write a huge note on a piece of cardboard 3x4 and says, "Are you better than us? No. Wrap your crap. And put it on the pallet." I didn't know it was him at the time, so I was just kinda like okay whatever, they didn't know I was waiting. Management was like it's cool to wait, so I waited for all 8 to be together. Today I go in and M is talking about it in the break room, and he shuts up once he notices I'm in there. That moment I knew it was him who wrote it. So I'm going about my day, couple hours go by, and I tell the managers I found out who it was. QM with his steward bullshit. M, hey. What did you tell the managers? Me, I told them about the little sign you wrote about me before knowing I had another pallet. M, you violated the brotherhood of trust in this union by doing that. I will charge you. I am the steward of this facility. Me, okay cool, I'm not part of the union nor will I be. It doesn't include me. I don't care. Stop writing notes and come to me next time to correct my mistakes. I start walking away and I hear, "You won't have a job by tomorrow." Okay cool, let me research his accusations. I get a copy of his union contract by open records in HR, it's a terminal thing, we can request their agreements. And in one section it states, a brother of the union name must mentor and correct brothers of same union. A brother mustn't disobey this direct order of kindness and mentorship. Later that day, I get called into the union rep's office. She knows I'm not union. He's fuming and breathing loudly to express his madness. I'm sitting there and she says, "Okay, start the charge record." He starts throwing crap out saying I tried to assault him, blah blah blah, and that I don't do my job. I bring up the letter, she asks if it's true, he says no, so I brought it in and compared handwriting and it was in fact his handwriting. He got 1 tally, and then she asked if I had anything else against him. I brought up his contract and the section of mentorship, at which point, he lost it. He said it's invasion of privacy to view his agreement and I will be hearing from cops, except, he agreed to let this happen a year ago and knew it would happen. Cue the MC, I bring up the section and he loses it saying I'm immature and don't deserve to work there. Union rep strips him of steward status and is bringing him to union court for the violations of contract. It ended up with him not being scheduled for work for a week and me just being told to follow the rules and start wrapping stuff. The last one is titled, "Not So Handy Landlord Won't Properly Fix Washing Machine and Dryer." About 20 years ago and I was dating the man I would later marry. He had an apartment that was a quad but wasn't surrounded by the best neighbors. It was sold, but he was kept on as a tenant by the new landlord. He wasn't a bad landlord per se, but he fancied himself a handyman. And he was cheap. So the washer and dryer, included in the rental, both break, and the landlord comes in to fix my boyfriend's setup. It works, but only temporarily, and they keep breaking, over and over again. It goes on for months. Boyfriend, who is a model tenant, finally complains lightly, saying that he's been going over to his mum's to do laundry, but sometimes he has to do it late, so he's been having to spend money at the laundromat. The landlord says that my boyfriend can bill him for the laundry, and the landlord will reimburse if things break down again and to make sure it's all documented by time, date, and amount. Then the landlord says he's going to take a look at it right now, confident, somehow, in the skills that he hasn't shown. They broke again. I'm far less tolerant about these things, but my so doesn't like to be any trouble to anyone. Still, he's really tired of not being able to do his laundry at home, but thought it was really good of the landlord to offer to pay for his quarters at the laundromat. Bless his heart and cue malicious compliance. This problem has gone on for 6 months, and I'm going to be solving it. I tell my boyfriend that he'll then have to keep track of the quarters he spends, by date, time and amount, and since there's no receipt, they might have to fight it out over the amount. And I just know he hates conflict. Plus, there's the time and gas he spends, which, while he could bill for it, any lawyer would argue that he would have spent time awaiting his laundry anyway at home. I tell him to send his laundry out for service because a service provides receipts. But won't that be expensive, he asks. I grin inwardly and say, it might be, but it's the only way to provide adequate documentation he's asking for. You can't prove what you spent at a laundromat. But you can with a laundry service. You'll include a copy of the bills with your rent, and a note saying that you've subtracted the amount that it cost to do your laundry this month, as a washer and dryer has been included in the rental agreement and hasn't been working consistently properly for 6 months. Since there isn't documentation for the last 6 months, of course, we won't be retroactively billing him. Don't worry, sweetheart, I'll write the note, and I will be sure to thank him for providing this in lieu of getting it fixed. It really is nice of him. Okay, he says, that sounds good, but how do you even arrange for that? I know dry cleaning, but this is just laundry. I'll take care of the details, no problem, I reply. They charge by the pound and load, so I made sure to also include all the stuff he had put off washing since it wasn't a top priority. He'd only been doing the essentials for fear one or the other would break mid-cycle, and because he felt he was taking advantage of his mother. And boy howdy, it really was expensive having a laundry service do all his laundry. I arranged for regular pickup and drop-off that was convenient for my so. They even folded his underwear. The rent check he handed over was substantially lighter by more than $200. But all receipt copies did have the time, date and amount. Faced with the prospect of such a bill each month, the landlord scheduled an actual repairman to fix the machines one day after rent was handed over. Thanks for listening.